Okay, so we got a question from Chuck on the screen. Welcome back to the program. And I went and grabbed this real quick. And now I'm going to switch over. I'm going to show you this. Okay, let me see if this works. This is the 12 tribes chart. This one in particular is IUIC's 12 tribes chart, right? Okay. Now with the 12 tribes chart, you have different versions as far as the style and the design. So I know which ones are which a lot of times. But this is a standard IUIC one. But other camps use it because it's readily available. They mass produce them more so than other camps because of their size. So you'll sometimes see other camps with this because it doesn't say IUIC on it per se. Okay. Now, when you look at this where it says 12 tribes of Israel, right? You have a few things. First of all, it's Israel. They're not saying Yasharal or Yasharallah. But what's the very top one there, Chuck? It's Judah. Now, if they were going to be consistent in how they say, well, the letter J, and they act like they have some major problem with it, should that say Judah? They're using a J right there. Almost every 12 tribes chart you ever see will have the J for Judah. And the rest don't have a J. There's no other J's in there. But that example is all you need to just show what's the deal. And sometimes they'll also have a hat that'll say something like Jerusalem. Like, for example, our friend Hakah frequently wears a hat that says Jerusalem, a place that he's never been to. Well, it's funny, it says Jerusalem. It has the J in it, right? So the answer is no, they are not consistent. And I would say if you're on the street with them, point out if they make a big deal out about it and say, well, what about the J right there? It's on your chart. And just wait for them to see what they say. Just wait to see what they say. All right, back to that screen. So I hope that answers that question. And Caleb says, Vocab, are you from the Gehanna area or what part of Columbus, if you don't mind? Gehanna? Don't you know Gehanna is the worst part of Columbus? Not in the sense of crime, but in the sense of the name. It sounds like Gehanna. Like the word for hell in the Bible. I'm just partially messing, but we used to make that joke when I lived there. Like, why you name this city, after the word that sounds like the underlying word for hell in the Bible? No, I'm not from Gehanna. I had a friend who lived there. He worked at Block's Bagels. He was a B-boy friend of mine named Alan, a Haitian kid. And we used to go pester him on Saturday mornings at Block's Bagels because we wanted to hang out with him. But he always had to work every Saturday morning. So every Saturday morning, this is like for a year or so, we would load the friends up. Now, I'm from the south side of Columbus, so I'd be coming from the south side. And we'd meet at Block's Bagels, and while he's working a shift, we'd be ordering bagels, and he has to work and help people and stuff. We just kind of mess with him and whatnot. But so that's my time I spent in Gehanna is with my B-boy friend. When I say B-boy, everyone, that's an old school term for breakdancer. He was a breakdancer, this Haitian kid from Boston. Anyways, so I'm not from Gehanna. I am from Columbus, the south side. I lived right off of South High Street in between South High and Parsons. And that's why I went to Buckeye Middle School and Marion Franklin for high school, if you know those places. Zachary Clark says, how familiar are you of mid-Acts dispensationalism? Mid-Acts dispensationalism. Now, I've heard about something called pre-wrath, the pre-wrath rapture. And the guy that used to be with Friends of Israel or whatever, Marvin something or other, he was promoting that back in a while and got some hot water. But I don't know what mid-Acts dispensationalism is. Just from that term, tell me what it is. I don't think I'm familiar with that at all, so I'm sorry. I can't help you. Maybe you can help me. J-Man asks, does Hakah have any Bible college schooling? Not that I know of, and I'm going to say that if he did, I'm pretty sure he would regularly be telling us about it. So I think that's a sure way we can know that he doesn't. Plus, whenever he says seminary school, no one calls it seminary school, and says this is something you won't learn there or they hide this, it's clear he doesn't know what he's talking about because he doesn't have any kind of seminary experience or exposure. I'm not even talking about just attending a class. I'm talking about even knowing what happens there. And so it's kind of obvious by the way he refers to it. Now, he's not alone in that. It's just that he goes around saying things like, we have PhDs under our belt. He literally says that. Now, he makes it's the way he says that, because he said that to God Logic, by the way. Sakari has PhDs under our belt. The way he says it kind of makes you sound like, oh, people in Sakari have PhDs. What he's saying at, if you asked him, I bet, is, oh, Gorilla Hebrew debated Michael Brown, by the way, which I'm the person who set that up. So the only reason he can make that boast is because this guy. But no, he doesn't. He would say he doesn't need it. The Hebrew Israelites, on a whole, I think we can describe fairly as anti-intellectual. They have a distrust in organizations and institutions, but misuse them at their convenience, and don't really understand what happens there or how those things work. They will sometimes front and act like they do, and some people do. Almost always, though, when you have a Hebrew Israelite who has graduate level or post-grad training, it's almost in another subject other than Bible, theology, or philosophy. And if it is in Bible, theology, or philosophy, or apologetics of some sort, it's usually something that's unaccredited. Now, there are exceptions, okay? There are exceptions. But by and large, that's the case from experience. Now, I believe over time that'll change. And, of course, we understand, going to school somewhere doesn't make you right or wrong. We understand that. But it does, it can help. It can be helpful, right? Okay, well, it looks like we've got some people now coming into the green room. So just a second, let me see. I thought there was one other question I missed. If I missed your question, you just hit the Q, and then give a question mark afterwards. It's good if you can do it at Vocab Malone, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to, and all of that. So right now I'm just looking through here, and shout out to you guys. You guys are funny. Oh, Basic is here. Hey, Basic, where you been, man? I used to like Basic. He'd come around. He was funny because he'd always make little funny jokes. He's, well, where you been, Basic? Dino, you remember Basic, right? Caleb, I'm going to try to get to I'm going to answer your questions real quick here because I have Jay in the green room, so I'm going to have to answer your questions brief. I'm not going to be able to kind of mosey like I've been moseying. I want to make sure I get to him because he's actually coming in. Shout out to Sweet Tea, by the way, who's a patron supporter. Caleb Worku says, Vocab, why, in your view, are the BHI and groups like them race-obsessed? Well, there's 1,000 reasons we could say. One is we might, if we're going to be most charitable, we might say, well, that's because America has been race-obsessed, and they're being race-obsessed in return. You know what I mean? The average white person can walk through their day without realizing how white they are. I know that sounds funny, but it's not something they really have to sort of consider or think about or understand unless they're in a certain kind of area, and they're a minority. A lot of white people don't know what it's like to be minority. And I think that's an important experience, is to know what it's like to be a minority. I've had that experience many, 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 many times. Well, the thing is with that is that they're sort of reacting to things around them. However, it's a pretty common human condition to think that you're better than other people. And often you make it something intrinsic to who you are. So that's somewhat common, Mike B makes a comment about Ohio State. Let's see what we got going on here. Zachary, I'll have to get to your question later. Vocab, as a 19-year-old who loves the Lord, how do you recommend I begin apologetics? Side note, honestly, you should go to Bible college. There's a lot you can do, and I wish I could talk to you more, Caleb. You're a young guy from my neck of the woods. But let me just tell you this. Get enrolled in a good Bible college. That's the place to start. No doubt. That's my advice. Everyone won't agree with that advice, and I understand, and maybe you and I could talk more about that, but that is my advice. Okay, flipping over to bringing on a guest into the room, we have Mr. J.T. Mack. Give me 1 second. I'll have you appear on screen, and then I will try to give you a little sound effect, even though I don't have you on yet. That is preemptive. Preemptive for you, J.T. Mack. Now let's see if we can have your volume be heard. J.T. Mack, speak, my friend.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
Doing all right. Did all my running around, getting ready for work tomorrow. So I'm finally able to relax for a minute, which is good. So Herb, earlier today on Berean TV, a frequent camp dude. We call him AZZ. I don't know what his whole nickname or his whole adopted name is, but he made a statement that Adam's descendants So he first started tracking back Adam's descendants from Enoch to Seth to, you know, um, all the way back to Adam, and then Adam's the son of God. So the argument was, if you believe that Adam was a man of color, then the father is a man of color because Adam was made in the image. I mean, he basically said that God was a man and looked like Adam and blah,
Right.
blah, blah. So I was asking around because I asked Marin, is this typical camp doctrine? Because this is the first time I've heard that. So I'm asking you, have you heard this? Is that what they teach and believe? Or is this just something, some one-offish kind of stuff?
I have heard that. The basic argument seems to be this, Jay. Adam is black. He's made in God's image, therefore God's black. Was that the basic argument from what you heard?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that's somewhat standard camp doctrine from what I've been able to tell. Because more and more when I talk to one Westers, now the Tanakh only guys, I don't think they would go down this route, especially. And non-one Westers, I don't think they would go here, although I don't know for sure because I haven't heard them speak on it. But it seems like they basically have an embodied God. Not Jesus embodied, because we understand that's special, that's the incarnation. They don't even believe he's God, properly speaking anyway. But the one that we would call Father, that they would say is the creator who created Jesus in their estimation. From what I hear, he's embodied, because I've heard them say a number of times, God is a black man. Now, some are more out front with it. And what I found dealing with a lot of one Westers is their doctrine of God, their what's called theology proper. It's actually not very well thought out. And it's not also very explicit, meaning they don't seem to regularly talk about it, because I don't think it's very important in their mind who God really is, to be frank with you. So I have heard this a lot, though. I don't think that's just that guy. I've heard a number of other people make the same kind of argument. Adam is black because he's like dirt or the ground or the earth. They'll say something like that. What color is the mud? What color is the earth? What color is the dirt? They'll say something like that. So if Adam is that color, if he's brown or black, and he's made in God's image, then God himself is black. That's the argumentation. So you've heard that today.
Yeah, we heard that today, and my pushback was, obviously there are like several scriptures where God explicitly says he's not a man.
Right.
He's not a man that he should lie,
Right.
or he's not a man on any level.
Yeah.
He told Job, he basically told Job and Job's friends that they're nowhere in the stratosphere on his level.
Uh-huh.
When he began to explain how he put the universe together and put the planet, put planet Earth together in the depths of the sea and all that. So we gave him that pushback and some other passages, but I just thought that I thought it was maybe a one-off. But yeah, now that I'm seeing that this is what they're teaching, then it's just weird. And I told him this. I said that's the same argument Joseph Smith made, and that's the same argument the Mormons make, that God's a man and he had sex and had Jesus, and you can become like God and have your own planet. And I said it's not. I said you guys are just like Joseph Smith. Only thing is your version is black and Joseph Smith's version is white.
Yes.
So it's the same crazy stuff to me. But yeah, I thought I'd ask. I had some other stuff that I want to ask, but I kind of forgot I need to write down. But I'll get that stuff together next time.
That's all right. That's good. And I'm glad you're bringing this up, because it helps people kind of sound the alarm. Sometimes I think, Jay, people are like, you guys are overreacting. You're overreacting with these guys. So what? They want to keep the law. No big deal. And it's like, nah, man, these guys are out here talking about God is informed. He's physically informed. This is this is something radically different than historic biblical belief. This is something entirely new. And you're exactly right. Closer to Mormonism. Closer to something like the Nation of Islam, at certain understandings of the Nation of Islam. We got some real problems here.
Was it 66 trillion years? Berean nailed him on that the other day. Some guy came on and Berean nailed him on that the other day, and the guy just wouldn't acknowledge it.
Yeah. They don't like people talking about the supreme lessons, but Berean knows the stuff, so that's good. So, hey, thanks for coming on. Let's talk again.
No problem.
Appreciate your patience, Jay. God bless you, sir. All right. Excellent. We're moving along here. I thank you, everyone who's come in so far, and we're going to get our next guest. If you try to get in earlier and it didn't work. I try to take people in orders. Occasionally there's exceptions. If I have some kind of prearrangement with somebody or something like that, or if somebody's camera is not working or those types of things, but I try to go relatively in order. So next I have Jay Floyd. I'm trying to bring you on here, Jay Floyd. Just give me 1 second here. And let me see if I can get you here, and then I'll change the name on the screen as well. Oh, come on, man. It doesn't want to cooperate. Hold on. I've got ways around this because it's acting funny. It's acting funny. Just give me a second here. Jay Floyd, you should be showing up. Okay, you're not showing up, but I think it's on my end. If you could unmute yourself, and I'm going to work on getting you on screen. And I don't know why it's not, because I just had the other gentleman up here. So, okay, there we go. Okay, I apologize. Jay, I'm going to change your name, and the floor is yours.
Hey, what's going on, family? Good evening. It's Floyd, Jay Floyd, Janelle Floyd. Y'all can find me on regular streaming platforms, social media, and all of that. But yeah, so man, we briefly just kind of chatted about the hip hop beef going on. I often follow our fellow apologists and read things y'all put out, and of course we all have a love or a past history with hip hop as well. So of course what's going on is kind of ringing some bells, but I thought about the violence in the past that most of this has come to, and getting ahead of it. I thought maybe J. Cole was gonna enter it. I think we talked about it, or kind of just shared a couple messages about. This is before J. Cole responded, and so I was thinking about somebody coming with the emphasis on where Kendrick Lamar currently stands in his Hebrew Israelite leaning, so to speak, and if you did any more research on that.
Yeah, good question. It's interesting. There's actually a whole article written by a Jewish journalist named Andrew. I follow him on Twitter. I'm going to try to bring it up right now. And he talks about how there was a certain sort of like Jews were like bystanders in the beef in a way, because things got brought up and people were kind of looking at it as like the Hebrew Israelite versus the Jew. That's how some people were framing the actual, beef there between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, because, of course, Drake being, half, and then Kendrick Lamar at some point identifying with Hebrew Israelism. So there was a couple people that made that, and then, you had Rick Ross get involved, and, of course, Rick Ross, talked about how he wants Jewish money and used the 6-point star, and he got in trouble with some of the gangs. I don't know if people remember that. A whole thing going on with that, and all these people chiming in. Now, it seems like J. Cole's not going to be involved. He apologized, this and that. I saw some memes that were like, or maybe they were like videos where it was like a little animated Kendrick, and he was beating up Drake like in an alley, and then J. Cole's like riding a bike, and he like stopped and looked, and the little Kendrick character looks up and was like, "You want some too? You want some too?" And the J. Cole character turns around and rides his bike away. You know what I'm saying? So like,
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so like, I kind of see like I don't know, that was like a thing going on. Now, my understanding with Kendrick is that he never really was a Hebrew Israelite proper, and he sort of played coy. He played very coy. Now, I wrote an article about this in Christian Research Journal called "The Spirituality in Modern Hip Hop," and I covered Kanye. This is prior to Kanye's current stuff, and I covered Chance a little bit and some Kendrick stuff, mainly Chance, I think. But anyways, with that, he really was giving airtime to his cousin. So his cousin Carl was in IUIC, Florida. He was like a low-ranking member. So he was the one all up on there. Well, a few things happened. One is, after the album blew up, Damn, for whatever reason, Carl left IUIC and started calling him a cult. So Carl, his cousin Kendrick, he's not even in there anymore anyway.
That's good.
Yeah, and I don't know how he's doing exactly now. I haven't been able to, I've never been able to talk to him. I'd be curious what he would say. But now what you have is you got Kendrick in interviews and stuff, kind of playing coy with it. What I mean by that is he'd kind of say, well, that's not really my perspective. That's Carl's perspective. But then again, I rock with it. He said that. I have a Rolling Stone article right over there in which he basically said that. He's like, well, I rock with it. But then he also says, but that's Carl's perspective. It's like, well, that to me, it sounded sort of double. And so there's another Jewish scholar named Sam Kestenbaum who wrote a book, who wrote a chapter in a book about Kendrick Lamar and the meaning of the making of black meaning or something like that. And each scholar covered a different chapter. And in Sam Kestenbaum's chapter on K-Dot, he talked about how K-Dot was never really like all in Hebrew Israelism the way some people kind of wanted him to be, because his answers in interviews were really back and forth. Plus, on the Steppers album, he's coming out seemingly in support of transgenderism. Well, Auntie was a man or whatever. I don't know. I forgot the name of the song off the top. It was a weird song. And it's like, wait, are you caping for that? Are you saying like that? It was so like, I think he's all over the place. My opinion really of all this is in hip hop, you kind of get points by flirting with spirituality as if it makes you deeper. But I'm going to be honest, and I'm not saying that Kendrick's not intelligent. He's certainly intelligent. But it's a lot of fake deep, in my opinion. So it's a lot, like a lot of pop culture, fake deep. I'm not saying hip hop, because I think hip hop's the fact is in hip hop you have so many.
Flirt,
Yes, go ahead.
With the conscious community. They flirt with the conscious community often, and we've seen that in the East Coast, right? That's where a lot of them seem to be stuck. I mean, even our brother Talib, he still can't, with all the information he has, some of them can't quite divorce themselves from that leaning and trying to be deep with it.
Now that's
anti-establishment.
That's kind of a lot of things, and on certain levels, like, these are the most talented sort of guys out, in my opinion. When you talk, like, I don't really like any of them. I was really addicted to hip hop a lot of my life. I was sort of just an addict who like was just obsessed. And I still love the vintage stuff, but more and more just because I have a disconnect because of the cultural disconnect, because the more I've grown with Jesus, the less I can really get into a lot of how it is. So I realize, like, yeah, this is a beef, and I guess in a way it's good for hip-hop, and I appreciate the artistry by everybody, but ultimately this is just product of sin. This is strife. Do you know what I mean? And it's like... let me show you this article. Be curious what you think about this. And I see we got two other people. But go ahead. What do you think while I bring up this article? Because you maybe had some more things you wanted to say yourself.
No, actually, I don't have too much to say. I just know that, I kind of understand where you're coming from with our just not so gravitating or not going so heavy into trying to understand hip hop and where everything is. But I think more so with the apologetics, with our love for apologetics and sharing the gospel, it just, to me, it's more about the humanity and maybe finding a way to always preach the gospel and always interject or interact with those people on a daily basis that we might run into that. Have that topic on mind. Speaking about current events and finding ways to lean that towards the gospel. I was when I reached out to you, I was wondering if you or somebody like you might have had some kind of conversations with people like J. Cole, or maybe even had conversations with D1. Because he's lately been reaching out to more of the hip hop community to be able to reach out to them with the love of Christ.
So the hip hop artists that are current that I know that I talk to, a lot of them are more old school. First of all, a lot of the new guys, even in Christian hip hop, to be honest, don't know who I am and don't care. Now, some of them do.
Understood.
Some of them do. Now, the reason I say that is because I've been at conferences with them. And a lot of them, especially these young guys, they have no clue what I'm doing or who I am or why my table's next to theirs. They're not mean or rude.
Gotcha.
They don't know what's going on. They see the book. They don't know what's happening. They don't know. They don't know why I'm at the conference
Right.
too, because I'm not rapping. What am I doing? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But now
Right.
that's not everybody. So I'll give you some. But see, these are people from another time. The Truth is very interested. And he's got the book. He's been very supportive. We've had conversations. Preston Perry, he's very dialed in. We've had a number of conversations. Ambassador Deuce. Now, again, we're going back when we start talking about this. Even actually Soup the
Right.
Chemist. But, when you talk about the modern guys, so I've met Andy Mineo. I've met NF. I've met Zonti. None of them really know what I'm doing.
Right. No, that's all right. But but it's good that you have those who are, closer to whoever, more so than you, to just have that bridge. And you still have that bridge, because when we start researching, like myself, I think I was brought in to apologetics from a friend back in 2014, 2015 through John MacArthur book. And then when I started leaning away from him when it came to understanding, biblical justice, and then I ran into the urban apologetics community via some of those videos after some of the books, and because I was looking for more books, and so I ran into you back in 2014, 2015. So when people start doing their research and people start looking for a community of others that of like minds, it becomes more apparent that you have people out here that you might not know of, but they're in depth and put in a position by Christ to reach the world. So yeah, man, I appreciate what you do. I appreciate what you're doing, and I definitely got to read that article.
Yeah, appreciate that. So this is not my article that I have on the screen. It's from a Jewish author's article, but I thought it was an interesting article. Andrew Essenston, May 9th, 2024. So actually, this is only 10 days old. And he says, Drake lost the great rap war of 2024, and so did the Jews. And it's an interesting article. He explains what he means and goes through some things. And he's an informed author. He's someone I've communicated with before, so I appreciate his work. Now, he's writing from a non-Christian, secular Jewish perspective, but he still does good work in the article. That's one for more old vintage stuff. My article is called the modern spirit. It's called Spirituality in Modern Hip Hop, and it's available for free at equip.org. And I also did an adapted form in my book on the Hebrew Israelites as well. And also the Sam Kestenbaum one, Kendrick Lamar in the Making of Black Meaning. That one's very expensive, and that's like an academic one. I wouldn't necessarily recommend pumping down the dollars for that. But check those out when you can. I appreciate talking to you, and I hope you have a beautiful day, Jay Floyd. Let me get to the next guest.
Likewise, man. Have a great one, y'all. Peace.
All right, we're going to switch over. Appreciate everybody being patient, and the lines are opening up little by little. We have MC Choir Boy is up next. Just give me a second, and I'll have you come on in here as well. Just a second here. I got to do switcheroos. One day I would like to have a producer, but I don't have a producer right now. And so we got what we got. But MC Choir Boy, you are in the smoke room. Go ahead. I'm all ears.
Hey, what's up, man? Can you hear me good and clear?
I can hear you good and clear.
Oh, sweet, bro. So, I'm actually calling in from Aotearoa, New Zealand. And you sent me an invite. I'm the admin from the Holy Hip Hop page.
Oh, that's you. Right on. Hey, that's kind of funny because I don't get a lot of questions about hip hop per se here, but we just had a little bit of one just now right before you came in. So that's fascinating. I don't know if you wanted to chime in on the little conversation we just had there.
So I guess with the Kendrick, I don't know how the show works because I've but anyway, I'll just chime in on the Kendrick and the Drake beef. So me and my youngest daughter, she's 13. She's like really, really into it, right? Because I guess you could say she's like this generation's,
right.
She's engaged, right?
Uh-huh.
But she's really into her old school or like 90s hip hop because I've kind of like educated her about that kind of stuff. So she's like into De La, she's into Tribe.
Wow.
She's into like that era, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's into like MF Doom and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
So with the beef, she's like sending me all these links and all this kind of stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because I only liked his what is it? To Pimp a Butterfly?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I only like that album, but I don't like any of his other stuff. And I guess the only kind of modern holy hip hop kind of artist that I like is Toby Ngangawe, is it?
Oh yeah, the guy that was in the new Transformers movie.
Yeah. So I love his stuff because I feel like he's achieved what in the 90s we always wanted to see a Christian achieve in the holy hip hop scene, you know, because to me he is holy hip hop, but in like a modern sense, like he's kind of like infiltrated in this is just from someone doesn't even live in the States, but looks at it from like the outside, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's dope to see a person of faith collabing with all these like secular artists, but still maintaining like morality and family, being married, but just being in your face, having a sense of humor, but right in there, you know what I mean? So
yeah,
I guess so for us in New Zealand back in the 90s, we really didn't know a lot about the underground Christian hip hop scene apart from SFC, Idol King,
oh wow,
Freedom of Soul.
Nice.
But it was all on cassette tape.
Yes.
So we had to like, you know, like I would input in, say, Preacher's Violent Playgrounds, and it would take like 3 months to get here.
Import.
You know what I mean? And
I guess I was blessed.
Yeah,
I just
bro.
had to go to the store and order it, but you had to import it. My goodness.
yeah, and it was really expensive even back then.
Yeah, but it was.
And I tell you something funny, because this was before the internet. So like, we had to look on the cassette cover to try and figure out who these people were. So like, all the people that rocked with like Soup, you know, like Freedom of Soul, even T-Bone, all these people.
Yeah, those are
Peace
called
5-8.
the liner notes. You would look at the liner notes. I used to study the liner notes too.
Yeah. Yeah, so we would look at the liner notes, and I'd be like, oh, I wonder who this is. Because
can you tell people?
Shout out to this person.
Tell people about the page that you run. It's mainly on Instagram, right?
No. It's mainly on Facebook.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Sorry. I'm bringing it up right now. But the full name, because I'll try to share it here.
Yeah, it's the
Holy Hip Hop
History page. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How that came about was, I used to always follow that.
Right here.
You know how there's that website that has the Holy Hip Hop. It's like Holy Hip Hop History, but it's like an actual .com website.
Yeah, the database.
That's it.
That's probably that might be how you found me, because that guy got a hold of me back in the day, and he put my stuff up on there. It's like HHHDB, right?
Yeah, my profile's on there too. I think I'm the only artist from
New Zealand
that's on that page, because I had the first Christian hip hop full length album in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Wow.
So he put me up there.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, but I decided to create a page that was like a visual page that people could visually, you know, share the old photos and the old memories and any articles, and I'm still completely open to that. So if people want to send me, you know, articles, anything that they want to share about the history, that we can share with people, so that it's really about paying dues and respect to the pioneers of Christian hip hop. That's what that page is there for.
Yeah, I got it
It's
up
for you
on I
guys
got
to-
up on the screen there right now, so people can see it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. So everybody, take a look. This is the Holy Hip Hop History page on Facebook, and that's a classic picture right there that you've got selected. This is somewhere in Southern California for Soup the Chemist when he was the leader of SFC. It is for his album, and what he did was he got all the Christian hip-hop artists at the time, like in 92, 91, he got them all together, and they went out and they took these images with this fisheye camera. So it's got that little distinct look, that's the fisheye look, and it's got so many people on here. I see DJ Cut No Slack, I see, of course, DJ Dove, I see QP, I see Soup the Chemist, just an amazing thing. And so you run this page, and I think it's a great page that you've got on here, because I really encourage people to get in to pay attention to Christian hip hop, especially the history. So I think that's great. And you got some classic pictures. I mean, these are pictures I've never seen before. Like this picture of Peace and with his MPC, and I believe that's B twice. I've never seen that anymore. Anywhere. So I know how you're getting stuff. You must be making connections and stuff with the artist, huh?
Well, a lot of them I've actually been friends with for years. Like I've
okay.
on only Facebook friends, but I've made connections to all these artists. I don't know if you remember when MySpace was
yeah.
out, but
Of course.
I made some early connections on MySpace with Soup the Chemist.
Nice.
He actually sent me. I supported him when he did the crowdfunder for his book.
Yeah, I got that book.
So so he sent me a physical book that was signed. It was signed with the CD. Did you get the CD?
I didn't get the CD. What CD? What do you mean CD?
Bro, he sent me this mix, bro, and it was like a greatest hits.
Wow,
it was like a greatest hits CD, bro.
I see. Yeah, you got really unknown groups up there. Here you got One Way. A lot of people don't know who they are. You got Camp Quest. You got like some really great stuff. Frosty. I've met so many of these guys. This is cool. You have a lot of, because I'm sort of an amateur Christian hip hop historian, but you're putting a lot of stuff on here that I've never seen. So I think that's great. All the different people. So I encourage you, man, keep it up. Keep it up. Oh yeah, you got the Petity album with the Note Verbs. That's a great album. Oh yeah, and then the Under Fire. I used to write for this magazine. You should see if you can get all the old copies of Under Fire from Frosty. Jason, because he's the publisher.
Oh.
So Frosty, Jason Avell's the one who published Underground Fire. He only but maybe he put out a dozen issues. But you should see, and also if you get a hold of them, try to find my article that's in one of these. I forget which. Oh, I know which one it's in. It's in the one with the chemist. There's like a weird chemist. It's like a graffiti chemist on the cover, and he's got the periodic table behind him. That one I wrote an article for, or a review or something. And there may be more, but I know I wrote for at least that one, Underground Fire. But Jason is the one who published it.
Yeah, because a lot of the stuff that I research online, I only have little pieces of it.
Yeah.
So I don't have the full story. I only have little bits,
I have
from what people have sent me.
If someone paid me enough, I could scan it in. I have every copy of Heaven's. I have every copy of Heaven's Hip Hop ever published.
Oh wow!
The magazine back in the day. But listen, we got to move on. I just like to take callers, and it's good to actually meet you. And I really appreciate the work you're doing. Everyone, go on Facebook.
Can I
and
just
subscribe.
say one little?
Yeah.
Can I just say one little comment?
Yeah.
So on the Holy Hip Hop page, there's a little crowdfunder thing, and I'm trying to set up an art gallery in New Zealand, in my hometown, to set up a permanent art space so that people can come and do art and share and build a little community, like a little arts community. So if anyone feels led to donate even $1 or something like that, feel free,
Okay, we'll look for it on the page.
I just want to say thanks, bro, for the invite, and I wasn't sure what time it is over there, you know, but it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon in New Zealand.
Well, you got the right time. And I encourage you, keep up your good work, because people need to know about the history, because it's a great ministry that happened through music. And, you know, there will never be another set of pioneers. So they paved the way, and now everything going forward does stand upon them. And so I really appreciate you being able to bring that forward, and so people can see that. So keep up the good work.
Bless you, bro.
Yes, sir. God bless. Wow, a guy from all the way from New Zealand. How cool is that? Come on, that's pretty cool if you ask me. Benjamin Roberts in the house. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit. We're pretty close on your face there, my friend. But just give me a second. I'll make sure people can see your golfing outfit here. I'm just teasing you.
You're exactly right.
Okay, yeah. It just looks...
I was out golfing early.
Okay, well, I'm glad to see I'm not crazy. But okay, hey, Benjamin, how you doing? I'm going to change the name on the screen, and the floor is yours.
I'm doing all right, Vocab. How you doing, man?
Oh, I'm glad it's a beautiful Sunday. I'm drinking a coffee, and I'm just dreading the weather getting bad. But in the meantime, in Phoenix, I'm enjoying it.
We have had a heat wave here. It was up to like 90, which for you in Phoenix, probably nothing, but...
Oh, I like 90. Give me 90, please. Just don't give me 90 in February. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel that. Yeah, so I don't know if you remember my situation. I was down here in Central Illinois.
Yes, you were the one. Hold on, I do remember. I'll show you. Who notified the world basically that there was a whole Israel of God white congregation in the middle of rural southern Illinois, somewhere around Carbondale or something. I say Carbondale because it's the only place in southern Illinois that I know off the top of my head. But somewhere around there. And the rule is that once they get 30 white people, you got to have someone from Chicago come down and take charge. Right? Did I get it right so far?
Yep. Nope. Spot on. And that happened. I will report that the group that was initially maybe a dozen average strong is going to maybe close to 40.
Oh, they exceeded the white people limit.
Yep.
Once you have more than 30 white people in a room, there's no telling what they're going to be saying. They might be saying God's a bologna sandwich. So I'm glad they got someone from Riverdale or Riverside or whatever it is down there and took charge. So who's the new boss?
I don't remember. I think they have a rotation, actually. It's like, oh, man, who's got to go down there now? Who's got to go
Who's
put up
got to
with the white
go
people
teach
today?
these freaking Gentiles that God's not a bologna sandwich? Who knows what they're going to say when they open up the Bible? Someone go down there and set these crackers straight. Okay.
Yeah,
well,
no, I mean, essentially, yeah.
It's like the minister at a large church who's like stuck with going to the nursing home duty. You know, hey brother, it's your turn. You know, you got to go down there. It's like Nacho Libre. He's like, I don't like these duties.
Yeah,
no, but,
exactly.
But it is a serious issue. So I don't think. Let me fill the audience in real quick. In all seriousness, okay. So Israel of God is maybe the largest Hebrew Israelite group in existence. We don't know all the numbers for sure, but we do know that Israel of God is the Hebrew Israelite group with the largest building or church or congregation, 6,000 seat facility there in the suburb south side of Riverdale, right? And so what you got there is down there in Illinois, of course, being in Chicago. But, of course, Chicago's not in southern Illinois, right? Southern Illinois is a lot more Midwest and rural, okay? And so there's a rural congregation down there that was a small group of white folks Benjamin knew about, and it grew to 40. And the rule was once they got over 30, you'd have someone that was basically officially a pastor, because you couldn't have this many Gentiles, is the thinking, kind of doing something without direct guidance. Now, they already had guidance, is my understanding, and supervision, but then it got more intense, and he's saying that it happened. But go ahead, Benjamin, the floor is yours again. Oh, did you freeze up? Well, Mike B. affirms that IOG's main church is in Riverdale, Illinois. That's true. Yep, his eCam did freeze. So let's bring in Brother Taylor here. Let's see if we can get Brother Taylor in here. Was I too loud? Were you guys saying I was too loud, or was the other gentleman too loud earlier? What was it? Guys, if you guys could let me know. I'm going to switch back, but I don't want to go back on what I told the gentleman. So, Brother Taylor, how you doing, sir? Welcome to Street Apologist Live. The floor is yours. I'll change the name if you give me some time, and I'll try to fix this camera situation. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Hey, bless you, brother. Vocab. Just doing well tonight. Just trying to get ready for another week a week of work. Excuse me. Just hearing
Yes.
some of the stuff you guys were saying. Yeah, but IOG. I just heard you talking about them. That's one of the. I think the groups that I respect the most is from a doctrinal perspective. Is I haven't disagreed with too many things they've said versus the One West people. Can you hear me?
Yeah. They
Okay. Yeah.
definitely are more
Bro,
kind and friendly too. I visited them several times, and they had no problem with me.
yeah. No, listen. I'll say this from the Israelite community. They don't allow fringes. I'm losing you.
No, I'm right here, bro.
Okay.
I was just messing. I was just trying to get your camera right. I don't know if you could put it. You got an odd angle, but go ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. I apologize, brother. But they have you go in there, there's no fringes. And he's one of the people that explains that and breaks down the science of where they didn't have fringes in the New Testament era. So they don't go, everyone's welcome. Salvation is for everyone, was what the scriptures teach. Even GOCC, that's where I kind of started off from. My father was in that.
Oh,
But,
father
yeah,
was in
but there's certain
GOCC.
things I agree. Yeah, I like the only doctrine I've ever found I disagree with was the virgin birth of Christ. And even talking to my father about that, I was like, I started buying different things to Pashida. I said, listen, things say this, they leave Joseph out, but they'll say that Joseph was the father. I don't believe that. But just you have so many different sects of Israelite things. Sakari, I didn't even know they believed in reincarnation.
Oh yeah.
Uh, some of the crazy doctrines they have, doctrines, not nothing against them, but it is what it is. And I go out on the streets with a bunch of ministers that are from regular churches, from
Mm,
different ethnicities,
mm.
and it's funny where we're at. There's some I don't even know who they are, what camp they're from, but 2 doors down there's an Israelite camp there.
Mm,
But like I said, at the end of the day, if you're not preaching Christ crucified, everything else you preach is null and void.
right. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to find a Hebrew Israelite group that's a main emphasis of theirs. Unfortunately, that's what it seems like to me. There's not a lot of them that they really emphasize that reality like they should. They seem to want to talk about everything else, honestly. But you used to be in GOCC, or just your father was?
My father was. I do follow him. I went to the Hebrew camps. Sometimes I do celebrate the feast days, but pretty much I from a fellowship standpoint, I go to the fellowship for certain holy days. But outside of that, I do take my daughter to church on Sundays. I don't care what day you worship or whatever. I do hold the Sabbath true to myself. But my daughter, we go to the same church that before I was in that truth, or realized I was, identified as a Hebrew Israelite. We still go to the same church. We still go to churches on Sundays. But I do keep the Sabbath. But at the end of the day, and what the scriptures say. I mean, you're an apologetic, so you understand what it says. So at the end of the day, I try to do what I can do within the law, but I know I'm not going to fulfill the law. So at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I try to keep the law, but if it's not Christ, then I'm not going to make it. Point blank
Yeah,
and period.
I mean
That's how I view it.
he is definitely our only hope. Real quick, I see we got a super chat from Yondell, aka Alan Torres. I don't know if you're still here, but I got to make sure that the dog gets something because Adrian, there you go. There you go. Here you go. Here you go, Adrian. All right, every time we get a super chat, we get a super snack for the dog. So thank you very much, Alan Torres, a.k.a. Yondell. Appreciate that, my friend. Sorry it took me a second to get you recognition. Well, so, Brother Taylor, you would say you're someone that says, hey, I am a Hebrew Israelite as far as my ethnicity. That's what I identify as. But,
Yeah.
and if I'm hearing you correctly, you would say they have some things right, but they have enough wrong that I don't attend any of their fellowships. I go to a Christian church, Because and if I'm hearing you right, you can correct me. It sounds like you're saying the Hebrews like groups, they don't emphasize the cross, and so you feel that that's something that's lacking.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's some things I follow IUIC. I have their IUIC TV. Some of the things they say, I would say I've learned a lot from them historically when they bring out books with certain things. The same thing with Elder Ricard. But at the end of the day, my whole premise is I don't say I'm Christian. I'm Hebrew. I follow the book. What's in the book? And from a nationality standpoint, I identify as a Hebrew Israelite based on what I've seen and research in it. But at the end of the day, I don't do the camp thing. I'm with this camp. I can go and support somebody, whether it's financially, going to the academy, or watching them, or whatever. But at the end of the day, it's it's just I feel like at the end of the day, I go out in the streets and we go to homeless populations, which is the mixed multitude, the same way we came out of Egypt and preach Christ crucified. That's it. I've never said anything. I do have fringes on, usually on the Sabbath, but I don't go out to the extent where I'll say something. Hey, bro, you're so and so, whatever. And somebody asks me something, that's a different side conversation. But the main message is Christ crucified, and that's that.
Well, yeah. Now, it's interesting, though. My thing is, regardless of what any one of these groups gets right, if they're not getting right Christ crucified, then I feel it's not just, to me, it's like, well, not just, okay, that's not right. It's a problem. I think that should be pointed out. So, because what's happening is they're getting people into these organizations, and then they get in there and people totally lose sight of the fact that Christ crucified is supposed to be the main message. So if you get into one of these organizations, Christ crucified and what that means gets buried. It's barely even a point of doctrinal concern for most of these groups. And so you have to say, what kind of group is it that emphasizes everything else under the sun? Holidays, fringes, the color of the Native Americans before Columbus came, all this kind of stuff. And they don't talk about the most important thing that saves souls. To me, I can't just say, well, they're kind of off on that. That seems like a satanic distraction, because I'm asking myself, who else would want us to talk about everything else but the cross, except for the devil? You know what I mean?
Yeah, you have a point to that in the sense that that's the main underlying thing that's going to get you to heaven or hell, to be honest with you. And like I said, it's just, and I'm still learning some of the things that some camps speak on, or what their doctrine is. Like some of these camps, I watched some of the things I didn't even know they even existed. ICJ, whatever you call these people. I know Sakar, I know UIC, IUIC, different camps, but Sons of Thunder. But it's just at the end of the day, and the script, and I say going by scripture, if they don't preach Christ crucified, that's another doctrine. Period. And even to the point where, like, when I went, listen, just give you a little bit of history. I was born in a family of Jehovah's Witnesses. That's growing up. My mother, my two aunts, my cousins. I came from out of that 5%. Listen, this is going to throw you off a little bit, vocab. 5% Nation of Islam, Nations of Gods and Earth. From that point, I transitioned into Islam, and the guy I was following was a guy back in the day called Al Sahih Al Amisa, which used to be in New York. When I used to go to New York, I didn't know who the Israelites was. I seen these guys dressed up in different clothes, kicking pictures of the white Jesus. Now, I didn't know who they were. I didn't know who they were until like recently, last 3 years ago, that those were the so-called Israelites. But one thing I could tell you, what I learned, where God brought me from an atheist standpoint, from Jehovah's Witness to atheist to Muslim, is I learned to go by what the book says. And at the end of the day, even my brother, I have two brothers that are Muslims, and a lot of times I did, like Josh McDowell, that's one of my guys when I was in college, studying the Bible, Amanda Bible College. I've learned to defend against certain things. So at the end of the day, when I deal with certain people, they come out and, I'm like a target. this guy here with fringes, when they come out to do like a blitz thing, whatever. I literally make sure I have precept upon precept, line upon line, to defend what I believe, not what nobody else believes. And I go to the scriptures, not by my interpretation, but we can go to Hebrew and go back to what the word means, or Bethula, or whatever the case is, and that's where I stand on. But you have some people, and I said, and I've seen things, watching some of the stuff you sent, I didn't know. I knew things were controlling with certain things, and I know what a code is because I was Jehovah's Witness, so I know what a code is.
Well,
So
a lot of the beliefs regarding Jesus, these Hebrew Israelite groups share. They've got Jesus being a created being, just like the Jehovah's Witnesses. They
yes,
don't
sir.
hold that he's uncreated, so therefore he's not really God in any meaningful sense. Of course, they clearly deny the Trinity. They have some form of works, grace, alchemy. A combination of both is what gets you where you need to go. And so you have all kinds of problems. The Jehovah's Witnesses, of course, are sacred namers. We got to use the name of Jehovah. And a lot of the Hebrew Israelites are versions of sacred namers, too. You got to say Yahweh, you got to say Yahweh, you got to Ashaya, Yeshaya, and Ahaya, you got to do it.
Higher, sir, higher.
And you start
Yes.
to see this is all just a bunch of madness from the same source. And so, I mean, maybe we could talk again, but I would challenge you, unless you're doing it for research purposes, I wouldn't subscribe to IUIC TV. Why are you giving them your hard-earned money, bruh? You should give that to give that to an
not hard on money,
apologist.
bro. It's $1.99 a month. That's
Now
cheap.
now you're advertising for him.
I-
I know how much it
no,
is.
I'm not
I know how much
advertising. I
it is.
apologize. You think it comes off that way, but there's some historical book. Listen,
I wouldn't trust their research. Every time I track down an
I do it for
IUIC,
myself, man. I trust no man's research.
well, why don't you
Listen,
just watch?
outside the scriptures,
Just watch
I
their
trust.
just watch their free videos. If you really feel like you got to learn something from IUIC, watch their free videos.
It's
Why are you
all
giving
the same thing. The free videos is
Brother,
they put on.
you giving IUIC $25 a year so they can go out on the street and tell people that you're going to be enslaved in chains in the future. You're helping
That's not
support
the
them.
Bible says.
But that's what they say, and you're supporting that because you subscribe to their streaming service. I'll tell you what, let's talk again, Brother Taylor. I appreciate your vibe.
Man.
You're a good guy, I can tell. I'm just saying, if I'm doing it for research purposes, because I'm about to tear their doctrine to shreds, okay, I'll buy a book. I'll download a video. I'll pay, whatever. But if you're doing it because you're like, oh, I need their research, bruh.
That's what I said is research. You hear what I said?
No,
about
no,
that?
but like,
That's what I said. Some of the
but-
stuff I didn't even understand. And so I got to some books that I never knew about that was from the 1800s, 1700s.
But you're doing it.
Love you, bro.
That's good. It's all good. Let's talk again, though. Let's talk again, my friend. I gotta get to some other
All
people. I'll see you around, okay?
All right, God bless, man.
All right, God bless. Benjamin, I know we got disconnected earlier. I'll bring you back on, and then I have a couple people that are trying to log on. It appears they got some kind of problem, so let me see if I can fix theirs. But you are back. Are you frozen again, bro? You're frozen again because I got you. It's just your face frozen, man. Oh man, Benjamin, what's going on? I'm gonna have to. Oh, poor guy. Okay, so listen. I see you're trying to log on. Who was it? Hold on. I saw you just a second ago. Where'd you go there? Okay, so Benjamin's back. Cat W. If you're
Are we good?
Yes, just a second though. Cat W, if you're trying to log on, and like I said, I know you said that you didn't want to do a video, and I said that's okay because you cleared it with me before. I understand your situation, Cat. But Cat, if you want to come on, there's a link that's in the live chat. It's the top link. So just click on that one. That's what everyone else is using. I don't know if you had a different link and for some reason it's not working, Cat. But if you just click on the link that is in the live chat, you should be able to come on. And then I understand you're not able to show your face like I ask everyone else to do. That's fine because I think it'd be good to talk to you. But if you have an iPad, you should be able to work it. But you've got to allow it to access your camera and your microphone at least. Maybe that's the problem. So give it a try again. Shut everything down, relog in, and then try to come back in. But go ahead, Benjamin. We got disconnected. You were telling us about Israel of God. What are you allowed to say the city or the area this is in?
Decatur, Illinois is
Decatur. Okay,
the city that is focused around. Yeah.
Decatur. Whenever I
Which,
hear Decatur, of course, I think Georgia, but there's a Decatur, Illinois. Gotcha.
yeah, it's about maybe 2.5 hours south of Chicago, so
Okay.
pretty central in Illinois.
So
But
what have you learned about this that you would like to share? Sorry, I'm trying to get your screen right there. Go. We got you now.
perfect. And yeah, sorry about that. I think there's some heavy storms
Oh.
right now, so I think that's kind of. But hopefully everything's good now. But yeah, so I've kind of been. I'd mentioned to you before. I actually am pretty close with one of the families that's part of this group, but I only really started learning more in the last 2 years or so. So I've actually gone to some of their Sabbath lessons there at that satellite location, just to, I don't know, show them that I'm at least like I'm taking not taking an interest, but like I'm doing my due diligence. How about that?
Well,
Like I'm not just
you're willing to give them. You're willing to hear what they have to say. You know, you have you're
right.
like, yeah. I always tell people, you know, if you're basically, honestly, if you're a strong enough Christian, in my view, a strong enough Christian can go anywhere. Now, when I say anywhere, it has an asterisk. I don't think we should be walking into strip clubs or something like that. But what I mean is any place to hear anything, because we should have a pit bull mentality. We don't need to be afraid of it, and we can handle it. So I think that's good you're doing that.
No, come on.
You can't hear me? I can hear you and see you, though. You're fine on my end. You're fine on my end. But while you're working on that, I'll wait until I can hear you again, and I'm going to go ahead and answer some of these questions here, Benjamin, because I can hear you, but it seems like you can't hear me. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these other questions. Let's see here. Inheritance says, hey, Vocab, any connection between people having a history with other law-keeping groups and then moving into Hebrew Israelism? Any connection between people having a history with other law? Okay, I think I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure if I understand what you're saying. But let me tell you my answer based upon what I think you're asking me. I've seen a grip of people move from Seventh-day Adventism into Hebrew Israelism. So if that's what you mean, groups that tend to be more legalist, that claim that in some way they keep the law, that set of folk, Hebrew Israelites, perfect picking grounds for them. So yes, I have noticed a connection between people who get an unhealthy interest in some of this Sabbath keeping, sacred name, wear the fringes, that kind of stuff, eat the kosher. They are ripe pickings for Hebrew Israelites. Now, if they're black or brown, native, indigenous, black, they can go right on into a One West group, right? And then they can have that extra oomph. And it's me, not you, right? Let's say it's a Hebrew roots person, though, who's white. They can move right on into a group, too, because they could go into a GOCC and keep their Hebrew root stuff, plus adopt the Hebrew Israelite stuff and be down. Or Israel of God, like Benjamin was just talking about. So I have seen people involved with the Hebrew roots movement, involved sometimes even with Messianic Judaism, to be frank with you. Different versions of oneness and stuff, which a lot of oneness groups are super legalistic. It's not law-keeping in the sense of Old Testament law in the same way that you think of with Hebrew roots, but like the United Pentecostal Church, the UPC, so legalistic. I think there's also another place. There's a bridge for them to go there, plus their denial of the Trinity. So I have seen that, and what it shows is that heresy breeds heresy, and that's why there's a such thing that scholars sometimes call, well, more apologists, because scholars don't like the term cult anymore, but sometimes it's called cult hopping. Cult hopping. Mike B says, is Kodak Black still involved with the Light of Zion out of Miami? Well, I can tell Mike B knows a lot about what's going on because that's sort of an obscure fact. Kodak Black's like a lot of the guys. They kind of get involved and then it's like, what's his involvement? So it seems that the Light of Zion has some form of a prison ministry. So at different points when Kodak Black was locked up, they were visiting him and he seemed to take things more serious then and when he got out. And it is interesting. Someone brought up Kendrick Lamar earlier. I don't know if people noticed on the last Kendrick album proper, The Steppers or whatever, Kendrick Lamar had Kodak Black featured all over there. What, 2 or 3 songs? And you may be like, well, this is odd. You know, Kodak Black's from down south, Kendrick Lamar's from, you know, the West Coast, and he's more of a lyricist. You know, Kodak Black's kind of doing a different thing. But I read some interviews where they talked about this, and I think it was Kodak that said it. He's like, well, we got a common connection. We're Hebrew Israelites. And so they saw that as some kind of common connection. Now, as far as beyond that, I don't know great details or anything like that, but I do know that that was a a real thing and an element, apparently. Although I don't think the songs really featured a whole lot of sort of Hebrew Israelism in them, from what I could tell. It didn't seem like it anyway. Okay. But it is kind of interesting, right? And then we've also got Nico. He says, I watched Deacon's latest video attacking vocab. He's a straight clown. You know, yeah, but almost also in a certain kind of way, he makes people laugh. And so half the reason people watch his show is not really to get good, solid biblical information, although they think they're getting that, I suppose, but to be entertained and to laugh, which is what a lot of Hebrew Israelism is, honestly. It's just, you know, self-medication entertainment. Lauren's right. Kendrick Lamar's cousin was in IUIC. He left. And Mike B is also right. It was Carl Duckworth. So these are from previous discussions we've had on the channel. And Mike B noted accurately that the GDs in Chicago, that's Gangster Disciples, and I briefly covered groups related to that when I did the video with the guy who would always go, King David, BD, but he was Black Disciple. But I talked about some of that in that video where he would go troll people. Remember Famous Richard? He was trolling 770. I don't know if you guys remember that. But that was what's up with that. Jay Will says, there's also another artist. This is Kari from the old hip-hop group Jagged Edge. Yes, they've done a couple songs with him. There's been about 3 or 4 Sakari songs that have come out with the guy from Jagged Edge, and he's even been out teaching. This came out about 4 years ago, was the first I heard about it. But it is out there. And I do think that's what Inheritance was asking, because I see him say SDA in there. And that's interesting. Then we also got Zachary says, it's been nearly 2 months since I last been in a Masonic lodge, and I'm much better off spiritually having renounced Freemasonry. Praise the Lord. Zachary, I definitely would encourage you, renounce Freemasonry and don't be involved with the Masonic Lodge. If you feel like you need that extra community, get involved with a church that has a heavy emphasis on that. Perhaps a church that does a lot of home groups or house groups. I don't necessarily mean a house group church. There are good ones, but you got to watch out. But one that has a heavy emphasis on that, not just the services, but smaller meetings as well. I would encourage you to do that. And then he follows up. This is from earlier in the show. I'm just catching up on some of the questions. Mid-Acts dispensationalists believe that Paul's letters are the only sources of doctrine that the church should use, and that Jesus' ministry and commands does not apply to the church today. I guess I don't know anything about that. That's fascinating, weird, strange. And where can I find out more about this weird belief? Let me know. Okay, let me play a quick commercial, then I'll be back with our next guest here on the Smoke Room. This is Street Apologists Live, the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. Be back in a second here, y'all.
How you doing, everybody? Michael Williams from Lighthouse Publishing, Judah Nation Radio. I'll tell you about a book that we just helped print and publish. Barack Obama versus the Black Hebrew Israelites. It's written by one of my friends, Vocab Malone. Vocab has done a great job of going through and presenting almost like an introductory manual to the Black Hebrew Israelite religion, and also giving you some talking points from Scripture. This is a great book for you guys to read. If you guys are not familiar with the Black Hebrew Israelite movement, it's a movement that is sweeping its way through a lot of urban churches, as well as a lot of urban ministries. We are called to, at all costs, to preach the word, defend the gospel by counteracting. Get the book if you're into apologetics. Get the book if you're into defending the gospel. And also if you're involved in any type of urban ministry where you see this going around, get informed about it so that you can really counteract it by having a little bit of knowledge before it, because you can't argue against something that you don't know about. Now, so you definitely want to get this. It's about 140 pages. I admonish you guys to get this book. You can order it at the website listed below. You can also look at Vocab Malone on all of the social media networks. Purchase the book. It's a great price.
Man, I hate these devils. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Street Apologists Live, the show where we serve the underserved and look into the overlooked. Just going through questions in the live chat today, but I want to make sure we've had some connection problems. Apparently there's a storm out that way. Make sure we still try to finish up our conversation with Benjamin Roberts. Benjamin, you are back. What's going on, my friend?
All right, I apologize for that. If it happens again, just I'm a lost cause. You can move on. It won't offend me. But I
Lost
will try to make
cause.
this well. Okay,
How does
different wording,
go
but
ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
yeah. So I did actually have kind of a question. So yeah, long story short, dealing with this family that is a follower of Israel of God, obviously doesn't meet the usual ethnic uh, description, but so my approach so far dealing with them, because I think it's a little bit different, dealing with them hasn't been, it's been more so on doctrinal issues or like specific teachings that I've witnessed that I'm like, hey, this is why XYZ is wrong. This is like my scriptural evidence for that. But now I'm getting to a point where I'm wondering, is it a better tactic, do you think, to go after disproving because I know it's something that you don't spend a whole lot of time on, is the actual like identity of BHI. It's more so the bad doctrine. But I'm wondering if this is kind of a unique circumstance where going after these teachers where they don't have the ethnic connection might be more the way to go.
What to you're saying when you're talking to these white Gentiles, I'm using the Israel of God terminology, who are associated with IOG, to show them that the people that they're attaching to themselves probably aren't Israelites in the first place?
Right, exactly.
Well, I'm okay to talk about this stuff. It's true I don't make it the emphasis because, the real problem, of course, is the doctrinal stuff. Now, it's true that they base a lot of their weirdness on this idea that they think that they're Israelites. No doubt about that. I'm okay with that. I can definitely tell you, as far as Israel of God, because they are pretty cool folks. But I'll tell you this, that if you do that, they'll definitely view it as a hostile action and probably be more aggressive than you're used to seeing them. When I say aggressive, I don't mean they're going to threaten you or anything like that. But I mean kind of be a lot more assertive in their pronouncements. Because when I've dealt with Israel of God, I've noticed that they can be that way about certain topics. They can get real touchy. So even though they're cool and they're not like camp members and all of that, if you go out their main thing, even IOG will show you, oh, okay, a sensitive subject, I see. Because really their whole religion is based upon it. I mean, the name of their organization is Israel of God. That's
which is just a horrible perversion of Galatians 6 anyway. But
they're not. It's unless they just met it as the Christian church is Israel of God and they're another Christian church, but they don't, because whenever you hear Israel of God talk, you'll hear Elder Bowie regularly say, Sunday Christians. And the way that they utilize the term Sunday Christians is basically shorthand for those ignorant, falling after the masses, people who are lost, don't know their identity, don't understand the Bible, and are following a white version of the truth. That's kind of what they mean by Sunday Christians, basically. So, yeah, I mean, I feel like there's all kinds of ways to approach the things. I feel like you would probably know best knowing this particular local congregation down there. But there's a few reasons why I like the theological things and the biblical things first, because if I work with someone and I get them to understand that these claims about Israel of God members being Israelites are incorrect. We use a nice word. They're just incorrect or wrong. That's good and helpful, and hopefully it gets them to be away from these false teachers, to be frank with you. But I haven't done anything to build them up in their Christian faith proper there. I've got them to disbelieve something, and that sometimes, I think this is why I say you'll know best, because sometimes you'll see people who are so hold on tight to that's what I feel like you've got to shake that loose first as a matter of order. So that's something, for example, with Jehovah's Witnesses. In Jehovah's Witness apologetic encounters, apologists have sort of a debate about philosophy, about approach and engagement. And you'll hear some people say, emphasize these doctrinal points first and go those places. Others say none of that's going to work until you shake up their trust in the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. You really got to shake them up there because that's where their trust is in, first of all. Almost like getting them to see that the idol that they worship is a false idol, frankly. Sort of like Isaiah in the Old Testament would be the parallel I would use with that, where Isaiah is mocking the idols that the Israelites are getting invested in, saying, hey, these ain't really what are you doing? They don't know the future. They're pieces of wood. And where's this God? He can't hear you. He didn't do nothing, but look at our God. What are you talking about here, right? He's shaken up, but he's also pointing them to God. So it's like a double dance where even if you are shaking up their faith in this silly claim, hopefully you're getting to see the problem, though, is that they deny Jesus as God. They deny the triune nature of God. They deny the sufficiency of the grace provided by the cross. They deny the fact that it's faith alone. They probably don't even understand what sola fide means to even deny it in the first place and how IOG doesn't hold to it. All that's probably lost to them. Even if Israel of God were the real Israelites, they don't have a proper relationship of Israel and the church in 2024 and what that means and how it's union with Christ, not union with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. How that's emphasized. How IOG would get the book of Galatians all wrong. How IOG, as nice as they are, still talks about we're going to have servants in the kingdom. Now, they won't usually say it's going to be hardcore slavery. When I've heard them say, they'll say it's more like butlers. It's more like a butler type of thing, you know. But it's like, bro. But it's still at the end of the day, it's still you're wanting to get to the kingdom so you can be waited on. That's part of what you're into. That's totally backwards. This is not what Jesus came to teach people to want. So I would say, look, you're gonna know best because you're gonna know the people. And I'm a guy who believes in small government. What I mean is the local government, the people closest to the problem, or the people who understand the solutions best. So I would put that sort of in your hands. But you just got to, it's such a dance because even if you're destroying their faith in this false idol that they have, basically, you got to always make sure you're pointing them to Christ because they can just lose faith in the Bible or God or Jesus altogether a lot of times. And this is what happens a lot of times with Mormons, for example. You know, and it's not the Christian apologist's fault per se, but, you know, these Mormons lose faith in the Salt Lake City quorum of the 12, but they lose faith in everything. And that's, you know, we don't want that either, right? It's not just get out of Hebrew Israelism, it's Jesus, bro, Jesus. And I know you know
100%.
that. I know you know that, but so you got a lot going on, but the fact that you have a heart to want to do this and the fact that you're there listening to what they say, you know, you might become, I'm not joking when I say this, you might become the expert within the Christian church on Israel of God. Because, well, here's what I've noticed. People talk about, oh, he knows a lot about Hebrew Israelism, this guy. There are so many groups and variations of this thing that it's really difficult for a person to be expert on all of them. So when I talk to Abu, who no one knows more about this stuff than him, I ask him all kinds of questions. He tells me all kinds of answers. But it's interesting, even Abu, as knowledgeable as he is, he knows very little bit about Pastor Dow and those guys. So when I have a question or something about Dow, Abu doesn't know a lot about it. Now, he's so intelligent that anything I say, he can filter it and still help because he's like, well, that's like this, da-da-da-da. But he doesn't know a lot himself. So there's like maybe someone else I ask, like this guy named Rudy, who knows more about Dow and those guys than anyone I know. And so it's like a different person that knows a lot about that. And then Abu knows a lot about this. You see what I'm saying? You might become the person or one of the people who like really knows the most about that particular group of them and can help other people. And that's a good thing because there's so much to learn. And so I just encourage you to keep it up, man. Keep it up and let us know what you learn. And once they see some of these phone calls, I don't know if they may be like, hey, that guy's not allowed in the doors anymore, bro.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like, I feel like within the whole apologetics BHI spectrum, I'm in a unique position because I'm not so much dealing with BHI as of yet. I'm dealing with the people who are influenced by BHI, if that makes sense.
Well, that's why I just call it Hebrew Israelism, because it doesn't have anything to do with your color at that point. Now, I understand, obviously, the centrality of Black Americans in Hebrew Israelism. But what I mean by that is if you relegate it to an ideology, which that's ultimately what it is, but if you designate it that way, that's a better word than relegate, Then you can have someone who imbibes and embraces it, regardless of what they look like or what else they hold to, or where in the world they are. You understand, well, they're influenced and infected by this version of Hebrew Israelism. The IOG version, sometimes I call Chicago Israelism, but that's not 100% descriptive. But there is a certain type that came out of Chicago. But the problem is it's not just represented by IOG, because the Demona folks that are in Demona, African Hebrew Israelites in Jerusalem, they came out of Chicago, but then again, they left back in the 60s. But they still have some impact there as well. I think they have a cultural center as well. But Israel of God and their similar groups are very big. But again, they're not the only one. You go to Chicago, UPK, IUIC, GMS, Sakari, all of them have a presence there. Now, that's not what you're dealing with, but you're dealing with something very unique. But I think your perspective is good, because it shows people this thing is growing in all types of sectors. So I think it's very helpful for people to be aware of that. But I got to go to, I think I got one more guest I'm going to go to, my friend.
Absolutely. I just want to say shout out to all you guys, Dinu, Nate. Love you guys. Hope to see you guys in the next members chat. And Nate, just because you asked, good soldiers follow orders. That's all I got to say.
No doubt. All right. I like it. Shout out to Nate and Dinu. And I think Andrew was here earlier. We got the best mods up in the house. I want to give a shout out to Minister Meach for the super chat. Can't make it today. Thanks for the invite and all that you do for the gospel truth. Hey, I appreciate that. That's very kind of you. May the charis, everybody who wonders what that is, that means grace. Grace. May the charis, the grace of the triune God be with you. I agree. I like it. Thank you very much. All right. We have Here I Am, Lord Sin. What's going on?
Brother, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Where are you calling from? What's going on?
I'm calling from Thailand. I've currently got Thai belly, but I contacted you on Facebook and you said that...
It's always right when you call, huh?
I'm in Thailand, and they set fireworks off when they're making something holy, some festival thing, or if they have a new thing, they set off firecrackers in a row. So that must be like a neighbor.
But you're not Thai, but you're in Thailand.
Yeah, I used to live in Thailand. I do Muay Thai, and I lived out there for 2 years.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So what name should I put on the screen here, my friend?
My YouTube name's Here I Am, Lord Send Me, from Isaiah 6:8.
Okay.
But I'm Adam. Not that fancy.
All right, Adam. Well, hey, what brings you in today? I could talk to a couple people and invited a couple people, but I don't remember the context of each interaction, so help me out.
Don't worry. So what I do is I do apologetics. I compare the stories of the Quran and the Bible side by side.
Yes. Okay.
It's so easy to disprove, and I just think it's quite hilarious why we're treating the Quran as real. It says, looking at the text, when all we have to do is look at the evidence. Lut, Abraham, Nuh, Musa, Isa. If we just take the two stories and then look at the archaeological evidence, we don't need to speak. So I'm currently going round. I've taken on Ali Dawa. I've just dropped a video of him last night. Hamza's there, and all these kind of people just taking caps for Jesus, bro.
So you specialize in Islamic and Christian dialogue and apologetics and polemics, correct?
Yeah, massively. Yeah, I study all different faiths. I know that you are Black Hebrew Israelites. I've got a channel versus channel debate with them coming up soon.
Who are you going to talk to? Who are you going to talk to there?
What's the channel called? I mean, you're more than welcome to come on, because I've followed you guys for years. I've not popped out of nowhere. I can message you on Facebook and give you the name of the channel. I popped up on their channel and started whooping other people's butts, other denominations' butts, and then I realised they were Hebrew Israelites, and they were like, "Bring your channel." I was like, "Okay, I've got this." So I'm just on that kind of stuff, man. Yeah.
Okay. Who do you recommend people become familiar with? What videos and books so they can better understand apologetics regarding the Quran?
I wouldn't go that way. What I would do is find the similarities that we share, the names of the prophets that we share. Stop fishing in the same pond. Jesus, the Trinity, all these things that people do, and start going to areas they don't have defense for, which is most of it. Yeah? So compare the prophets, and all you have to do in the Bible is open it up on a random page, any name, person, place, anything that would have left evidence, go and find it. It's all there. I test the Bible live. I've been trying to disprove the Bible for 6-7 years now. I can't, because it is true. So once you know what to show them, they can't argue with the truth. If you're good at... I'm a salesman. I'm an award-winning salesman. That's what I do. I knock on doors. I can convince you to buy anything. People are very good at talking, but man's opinion and man can lie. The evidence can't lie. It can't talk, and it can only back up one story. So what I'm encouraging people to do is change the way that they evangelize, or at least vary it, and at least vary the subject. Don't always go back to the same pond.
So what's an example? What's a quick example you've got here? And I've got a couple other people I've got to get to. You got an example you could share that might be helpful with the audience?
The best one's Sodom and Gomorrah.
Okay, I'm listening.
Fantastic. Okay, Sodom and Gomorrah. God said it rained down brimstone and fire and destroyed 2 cities. Well, 5 cities, 3 little ones, 2 big ones, but just Sodom and Gomorrah. Destroyed 2 cities. We have found those 2 cities. They're massive. They're burnt to ash with 99.9% pure sulfur. The ground has been salted, and there is the woman who's been turned into a pillar of salt. The Quran has a completely different story. It said that it makes me laugh every time I say it. Angel Gabriel came down and flipped the city on top of itself, so you'd see a city turned over like that. Yeah, and they rained down clay, not so big, not so small, with their names written on it. And Allah says they'll walk past it day and night. So both of them, and the Bible says I'll leave it as a testimony. So both books are saying, look, it's here, go check it out. One of them you see a city on top of itself. If you could go underneath and see clay, but the other one is saying, I burnt it to ash, and it's got and they have balls of sulfur everywhere. The ground's salted, and there's a woman turned into a pillar of salt. It absolutely annihilates them. There's no scientific explanation for it. No one's talking about it because it's such a KO for Christianity.
That's the story of, instead of Lot, they call him Lut.
Lut, yeah.
How do you say it?
Lut.
Lut.
You've got to say it with a... You really got to get it up.
This is in Surah 7, 80 through 81, and 29, 28 through 29, for example.
I know the Quran and the Bible in my head. I kind of listen to things, so when people reference numbers, I'm like, sounds right, cool. But yeah, I don't learn that way.
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
It's so easy to do.
So you, what's the link or whatever I should drop so people can check out your stuff?
Oh, I make really funny stuff, bro. Like really funny, edited comedy. Memes
where do we find it
and
though? Where do we find it? What's the link there?
I'm just gonna send you the link now. Where do I send the?
Well, you tell me the
name.
Screen? What is it?
Have we got a chat? Have we got a chat? Oh, there, the chat on the side.
Yeah.
Guest chat. I'll just put a guest chat there. That's my channel. But I make really funny stuff, bro. I'm not. God bless me with a sense of humor. That's why I kind of followed you. I started with David Wood. I like people who can laugh because we deal with such a serious world. So yeah, go to some edited videos. Muslim cowboy. I've got them all,
truth
mate.
is not subjective. Truth is not subjective.
Yeah, I'm all evidence based. I'm here. I'm love send me, but everything I do is evidence based.
But I'm saying the at is truth is not subjective, right?
Yeah, truth is not subjective.
Okay, I see it. Okay, all right, cool. We always appreciate some good Islamic dialogue and whatnot, and I appreciate the resources you provide. And thank you, Adam, for coming on, and let's talk again.
Definitely, bro. If you drop me a message on a video, you can maybe come in for the BMI. It'd be a pleasure. And I've watched your work for years, bro. Keep being you, yeah? I think you'll find my content funny.
I appreciate that. Now, is it okay to ask you your particular way that you speak? Should we be able to guess where in the world and what area of the world you're from that? Besides just saying British. Besides saying,
go for it.
What is it? No,
Yeah,
no.
I said go for it. I'm from Yorkshire.
Okay, that's.
Leeds.
I want to get to the point. Now I'm nowhere close to it where I can learn the different. You know, this guy is Welsh. This guy's from Yorkshire. This, but I don't know any. But one day I want to learn. So that's this guy's Cockney. So Yorkshire, you said.
Yeah, Yorkshire. We're really blunt. We're really friendly, and we don't take ourselves too seriously.
That's good. Well, I think you'd probably get along with Americans then.
Yeah, I love the Americans. Like, I've been tapped into your kind of culture for 15, 20 years, basically. American politics. It's like our stuff on steroids.
All right, well, I like it. Okay. All right, man. Well, thanks. It's great to meet you, my friend. Let's talk again.
Absolute pleasure. Glory to God. God bless you, mate. See you soon.
Have a beautiful day, Adam. All right. Okay. Now we've got Kat. And Kat, I understand that you will be audio only, just so everyone knows. This is already set up before, so everything's clear on that end. But you got to unmute yourself, Kat, and then let's hear you talk. Though we do got to hear your voice, Kat.
Hey.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you made it. So, Kat,
Can you hear me?
Yes. Tell us what you want to say and maybe how we could pray for you and how we could help.
1 John 4:18. I need to know what it meant.
Okay, is that the main thing we want to talk about here today? 1 John 4:18?
Well, kind of, but I do need prayer because, I lost my dad last year, and I'm just going through a lot, depression.
You lost your dad, and it's been hard on you. Is that right? Okay. All right. Well, so everyone, I want you to pray for Kat, and I want you to pray for her that she's able to be a witness even in the tough situation that she's in, and that not that the Lord would be with her, because we know the Lord is with her, but she'd be reminded and know and remember and understand in a very real way that the Lord is with her. Okay, so with that, what brought you, Kat, to 1 John 4:18? What is the reason you had a question about that, if I could ask you that?
Just love problems.
Love problems? Okay. All right, well, let's take a look a little bit here at it. I got some notes up on the screen here. And we're in 1 John chapter 4. And we're going to go down to verse 18. I'm scrolling. I'll show my screen to you guys in a second if it becomes relevant here. And this is written by, of course, the beloved John, who also wrote the Gospel of John. And it seems he wrote these epistles towards the end of his life, much like the book of Revelation, of course. And 1 John 4 has this heavy emphasis on love. And it's beautiful the way that John brings it to light and the centrality of it with the Christian as it's supposed to be. And this verse goes like this: there is no fear in God's love. This is one translation. I'm going to read a couple different translations. Rather, his love that has been perfected in us casts out fear, because fear implies punishment, and the one who fears has not reached the goal of God's love. That's one way that it's translated. Now let's look at the ESV. ESV says this: there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. For fear has to do with punishment, and whoever fears has not been perfected in love. The Legacy Standard Bible says there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves punishment, and the one who fears is not perfected in love. Okay, so there's our verse. That's the main verse we're talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, Kat, first, could I ask you, if you think about God and the story of the Bible, what would you say is the most clear way that we see the love of God expressed? What's the one perfect example of where we see God's love expressed most clearly? If I could
Send
ask
in,
you. Huh?
send in Jesus.
Yeah. And what did Jesus do? This will help us understand what the Bible means when it says love, is why I'm asking you this, okay? It's just to help you and help the audience think along about this very important question that you're raising. What about Jesus is an example of God's love for us?
Because nobody can't get to God but through him.
Okay, excellent. And so God didn't have to make a way, but he did make a way, and the way that he made was through Jesus. Of course, Jesus says that I am the way, the truth, and the life. And so that is definitional right there for us to understand what God's love is all about. Because we see it most clearly expressed, Kat, in the atoning death of Jesus. Because that atoning death of Jesus cleanses us from sin. And because our sins have been atoned for, it should, when I say us, I'm talking about Christians, those who are in Christ, free us from the fear of God's judgment. Because before a person is in Christ, the fact that God is holy and we are not, and God has wrath and judgment in store for sin, not just in this life, but in the next, that should make us afraid. But, Kat, we don't need to be afraid anymore, because now we realize that that fear is something we should not hold on to, because our greatest fear actually should be the concern about our own sins' proper response by God, which is wrath. That's wiped away. So now we should be free from fear of God's judgment. And if that is our biggest problem, because Kat, I know it doesn't always feel like it, but you got to understand, your biggest problem that you had was you're a sinner in the sight of God. But if you're in Christ, guess what? That problem is erased. He sees the righteousness of Christ. He doesn't see you as a sinner in the sight of God. He sees the righteousness of Jesus Christ, because there's something called imputation. Imputation means Christ literally gives you his righteousness. There's lots of verses for that, but my favorite is 2 Corinthians 5:21. He who knew no sin became sin, and on the verse goes. So now, that big number one main problem that you had, which is the fact that you, like all of us, are a sinner in God's sight, that problem has been dealt with at the cross definitively, and Jesus said, it is finished. So what else would we fear at that point? Now, we understand we're humans, so we understand we face fear. But once we've truly comprehended God's love for us, we got to understand that the biggest thing that should give us the greatest fear, it's gone, it's dealt with. Because when you think about fear, John points this out, it implies punishment. But we don't have to worry about that eternal punishment anymore. Now, in our Christian life, we do things wrong, we can get punished. And in fact, the Bible says in Hebrews that if he loves us like he's our father and we're one of his kids, he will discipline us. But it's a sign of us being under him, and it's a good thing. So I'm not talking about temporal judgments that happen in our lives, you know what I mean? Where you cheat on your taxes, you might get in trouble, but God forgives and we can move on, whatever the case is, right? But that object of fear should be gone, because now we don't have to worry about anymore this fear of punishment. And so it's just like somebody who could float on water. You wouldn't have to fear drowning. Somebody who, had a permanent, inability to be burned. Why would they fear fire? You know what I mean? So we don't have to fear God's judgment, because the fear of punishment is gone. Now, the other time we see the same word is in Matthew 25:46, this Greek word for punishment. The other place we see it is in Matthew 25:46, where it says, these will go away into eternal punishment, but the righteous into eternal life. So that Greek word is only found in Matthew that he uses there in 1 John. My point is, he's talking about ultimate punishment, hell itself. But if our sins are atoned for on the cross, and you as a Christian, they are, then that fear is gone. And that relates to John 3:16. God loved the world in this way. He sent his unique, his only son to do what? To deliver this dying world from perishing. And so now Christians all over the world no longer are perishing in their sin, but have new life. It's been already given to us on our behalf through Christ and what he did. So this is God's mission, is to send a Redeemer in love, and it's completed in our life once we have the faith that is given by God. But even then, we've got to work it out, because you have to realize that eternal condemnation, you don't have to face that anymore. So everything else should not make us fear, because the thing we should be fearing most, God's wrath for our sin, that's dealt with. Yarbor, he's a commentator, he says this, quote, "There is no fear of estrangement from God in the love that by definition establishes intimacy with God," end quote. That's what this means. The cross brought us near to the triune God. So we don't have to fear the separation, the condemnation, because there is no condemnation left for those who are in Christ Jesus. And that's the very next verse. We love because he first loved us, 1 John 4:19. So this clearly relates to the crosswork there. And so what it's saying is that God himself doesn't have fear in his love. It's a pure love, right? What's God going to fear, you know? And our love should be like his love. But it's a different set of circumstances here because of the scenario that we're sinners. But now, because that problem has been dealt with, our sin and the retribution that we deserve, that's been dealt with. We don't have to worry about that punishment, that eternal punishment that's being talked about here anymore. And if you feel that fear in the meantime, Kat, I don't believe this is saying that you're not a Christian. It's saying that you haven't fully grasped or realized in a mature way the fact of God's love in your life. Because we sometimes still feel fear and get all that stuff. I don't think in this verse, my understanding is that John's not saying, well, that means you're not a Christian. Now, if someone's in constant fear, there are some things we should talk about. These are some deep biblical counseling issues. If they're in constant fear, we do need to talk about that. And that might be the case. But most Christians experience the fact that we still sometimes feel these fears we shouldn't fear. And that's just simply a lack of maturity and understanding on our part. So if you're feeling fear about certain things, and especially about the punishment that God has for sin, but you're in Christ, that's something to work through. Now, you may struggle with it the rest of your life, but you've got to understand, my biggest problem has been dealt with. All other fears pale in comparison to that. Now, I don't know if that's what you're asking, but that's what I would say 1 John 4:18 means. There's a lot more we could talk about that there, but I hope that helps you to an extent, Kat.
Yeah, it does.
What are you fearing, Kat? You don't want to say? It's okay if you don't want to say. What makes you fearful that you're worried about here?
No, I just want to understand the birds.
Oh, okay. But thank you for coming on the Smoke Room. Be sticking around. I got some great shows lined up. And in fact, on Thursday, we're going to be talking about tongues together. Controversial, get into Pentecostal, charismatic, gift of tongues, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be talking about that on Thursday and probably sneak in a show in between that if we can. So with that, God bless. Peace out. Much love. Talk to y'all later.